What's up, everyone? Alex here. This is For the Love of Video Games, episode 261. With me today is Daniel Santos. How's it going, man?
It's going great. I'm always happy to be on the podcast.
I mean, are there any other emotions other than happy?
Wait, do you mean in reference to the podcast?
I mean, you said like you're always happy to be on the podcast, and I'm like, were there other emotions outside of being happy? And I'm like, what are you getting at here, man?
What do you mean getting at? It's a common term to use. Like, I think you're reading too deep into this, buddy.
How are you doing, by the way? Like, I'm, like, I haven't spoken to you in a while, but, like, things have been going, right?
Things have been going. I mean, I've been killing two birds with one stone, and I don't mean that literally.
But you killed the other stone in favor of doing the other stone, right? Am I doing this right?
You're doing it wrong.
Damn it. I'm just doing everything wrong right now. Damn it. Okay, so go on, continue. What stones are you playing with?
Oh, that sounds wrong.
You're the one who started talking about stones, man.
Yeah, because you were twisting this like really common like phrase, and it's like, oh, what other emotions? Like, what are you talking about?
My bad. But really, though, like, what did you mean by that? Like, what are you actually doing?
Oh, okay. So how should I put this? I just mean that like I've been able to work on stuff in a way that like I'm knocking out multiple things at once. So
impressive.
I'm pretty yes. So such as being able to like write my script as well as think about like again inspiration through it, for other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Speaking of which, I actually I don't know if I'll go through with it, but I was recently inspired by a video I saw by this girl. Her name, I don't know what her real name is. She calls herself Red, and the name of the channel is Overly Sarcastic Productions. So her and her co-host Blue, they do like these videos about history as well as like literature and stuff, and they'll do like summaries of them. And she also has a series called Trope Talk, where she just like analyzes different tropes, like the Mary Sue, or the 5-man band, or the Rule of Three, or post-apocalypses, like that sort of thing. Like she just like breaks down tropes, and it's really good.
Yeah, cool.
So she did a video on All's Quiet on the Western Front, which is a book about war, and she did a really good job summarizing it. But I had actually watched the movie version of the book, the adaptation, back in, I want to say, high school. It was either high school or middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of glossed over, not intentionally, but because it was a summary. So I felt like she didn't go into as much detail on something as I would have liked to. And then that got me thinking, well, why don't I do it?
I see. Okay. Cooking something up.
Yeah, cooking something up. I'm gonna have to rewatch the movie, but there's a scene in particular at the very end, so I'm not gonna spoil it, obviously. But like, I feel that scene at the very end is like the culmination of the themes of the story, of how war strips away your individuality.
Right.
And I feel like the very last shot of the movie just like crystallizes that point like so perfectly. And like I said, she's doing a summary, so she just kind of just explains it very like plainly, like what happened in the end, without diving into it. So maybe I'll do it. Maybe we'll see. I'll have to rewatch it and see how I feel about it again.
Okay. And just for for people to check it out and stuff, what was her channel called?
Overly Sarcastic Productions. Her name is Red, and her co-host is Blue. She normally does Trope Talk, and her co-host Blue normally talks about like mythology So like he has one on has a video on like Gilgamesh, for example, and her trope talks are super good. I really like almost pretty much all of the trope talk videos. He actually did a trope talk himself where he talked about the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good video as well. So definitely check out that channel. It's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. I always love kind of seeing like a lot of these variations, like YouTube videos and stuff that range from, of course, the critical, like, from video games and stuff to, just these really simple kind of topics and stuff, like talking about tropes and stuff. And there's actually a subject that I wanted to talk about as a video in a future video. I mean, it was actually a discussion on our Discord talking about like Kingdom Hearts and Disney parks and like the origin of virtual worlds. And I don't know if you saw that discussion today, but I thought that was really fascinating. Yeah, and I want to elaborate on that in an actual video. And I'm like thinking to myself, wow, I have a lot to talk about when it comes to that subject matter, so maybe it's it's worth like kind of exploring. So yeah, but in case people want to kind of read that conversation and you just don't want to, wait for the actual video to come out, you can always join us on our Discord, which is bit.ly/BBArmy Discord. Once again, that is bit.ly/BBArmy Discord. Pretty easy to find. It's, it's just really a bit link that, takes one of the links that I used and it, takes you to the Discord. And, there's a lot of conversations beyond that, though. I think we also talked about Fatal Frame today and wrestling for some reason. And I was like, how the hell do we come up with these conversations in this Discord, man? This is crazy sometimes. I just never know. Like every single day, like I go into Discord, sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's like brimming with so much conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know how you feel. Like, because I've been a little more active in the Discord as well, and I've been enjoying the conversation there. People there are very nice.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very nice and very open. And of course, we're all, Japanese game fans. So check it out. Again, bit.ly/BBArmy Discord. But speaking of Gilgamesh, because you actually talked about Gilgamesh, there's another Gilgamesh in another game that, while he's been absent since the base game, this is quite the frickin' transition here.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of stuck because I'm like, okay, so Gilgamesh hasn't shown up since the base game, but we're talking about the third expansion to this game. I'm talking about Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. How about that? Let's just, wipe the slate clean and say, hey, we're talking about like Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers, right? So
that's one way to do it.
Yeah. Not the smoothest transition I've ever done, but hey, I'm trying. So this past Saturday, not this past, like 2 Saturdays ago, let's put it that way, by the time you guys listen to this, there were a ton of information actually revealed about Final Fantasy XIV. One in particular that we'll talk about later is of utmost interest to Daniel. And literally, even before I woke up that Saturday morning, I already got like a Discord message from Daniel announcing, like basically like the thing that I was about to like discover. And we'll talk about that a little bit, just a little bit of a teaser. But basically, like, one of the big things about Shadowbringers is that we're finally invading the nation of Garlemald. And I know many of you guys don't play Final Fantasy XIV, but Garlemald is the name of a nation that's derived from Garland. And have you played a lot of Final Fantasy? You have, right? At the very least, Daniel?
But yeah, I've played pretty much almost all the games in the series. Like, I beat 1, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10... 13, yeah, those and Tactics. Those are all the ones that I've beat, and I've at least played all the other ones.
Okay, good. I've at least played every single game in the series, so I'm pretty well versed on that. So when you hear the word Garland, what does that remind you of in the context of Final Fantasy?
If I remember correctly, wasn't that Final Fantasy 4?
It was actually 1. He was the first boss of that game. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, he was the very first boss, and he was also the final boss.
Yes, so because he basically turns into chaos.
Yeah, and
Garlemald,
it's
yeah.
time.
What's that?
Yeah, and it turns into a time loop.
Yeah. So, Final Fantasy XIV does not have a time loop, but the nation of Garlemald is derived from Garland's name. In fact, there's many inspirations from Final Fantasies that are in Final Fantasy XIV, right? So that's one of them. The other one is the witch Matoya is actually a physical character in Final Fantasy XIV. Although the weird part about Matoya in Final Fantasy XIV, not a spoiler, is that she's not blind. Because if you remember in Final Fantasy 1, Matoya sees, things through her crystal ball. But otherwise she's completely blind. But in Final Fantasy XIV, she can see clearly. However, there's a character in Final Fantasy XIV named Ishtola who is blind, but is Matoya's kind of student, if you will. So she's like, she's kind of like the master, the mentor, if you will, Matoya is. But there was a trailer that was released for, that teases Shadowbringers. And for some reason, this one guy calls Ishtola Matoya. And I'm like, what is going on here? This one character is now Matoya? So just to kind of give you like an air of mystery to like what's going on with Final Fantasy XIV, there is a crap ton of like just very loaded cutscenes in that one CG teaser that they released on Saturday. And I'm like, none of this is actually addressed in the storyline right now. Not a single one. So that's a huge surprise. But also, usually, like when these fan fests happen, Daniel, there's also a lot of like really cool announcements. So one of the announcements was that there's a new job in Final Fantasy XIV called Gunbreaker. And I kind of talked about this several months ago when, we were talking about like the Final Fantasy XIV fan fest in the US. But this class is a tank class that uses gun blades for weapons.
Can I just say real quick that I love the fact that everything has breaker next to it nowadays?
Like what? Like what else has breaker on it?
Devil May Cry 5 has Devil Breaker.
I actually was not aware of that. I wonder if that's like kind of like a thinly veiled homage to the Devil Breaker, because there was some talk about like how people are thinking like, how are they going to name the Gunblade class? Are they going to call him Soldier, which is lame? Sorry. Gunblader, which is also kind of lame. So I'm happy that they settled with Gunbreaker, because
Gunbreaker.
Yeah, very Japanese when you pronounce it. It's also very English when you pronounce it. And to be quite honest, when we saw Thancred in the long flowy cape, you almost kind of thought like he was Dante or something like that, like he was unmistakably trying to channel not only like, the class because of the gunblade and stuff, but also like, like Dante from Devil May Cry, which is a really weird combination if you think about it, like in Final Fantasy and in Dante, like what? Like, but it's coming. So, it's kind of weird because it's obviously a tank, which basically means that they're responsible for pissing people off around him, and he uses different kinds of ammunition to kind of deal damage and also shield himself and stuff. So it's still really obscure how this class actually works, but generally speaking, he has a gunblade. It is more the way that the class is designed, it's a lot closer to how Squall plays in Final Fantasy VIII. If you can.
So, wait, do you have to like press R1 every time you attack in order to make the gunblade explode?
Nobody knows.
Okay.
But one thing is for sure, the kind of ammunition that you load the gunblade will matter. And actually, like as you're actually slashing and hacking your sword, you can also like kind of fire the gunblade itself, like the ammunition and stuff. And the ammunition is going to play a lot into how the job plays, which to me feels like, it's still going to feel like kind of like a Devil May Cry-ish kind of hybrid of a job if it were, somehow in Final Fantasy XIV. That's what it seems like. But we won't really know until late June or early July when the game comes out how it's actually going to play. But
so just to get super nerdy,
yes.
Because most people probably don't know, the way that the gunblade works in Final Fantasy VIII is it doesn't shoot bullets. What's actually happening is that when Squall hits the enemy and pulls the trigger, it creates like an energy blast from the blade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is all kinds of dumb and weird, but it's part of the game's charm.
Yeah. And, like it's weird because for people who have subscribed to the game for about 2 or 3 years, we've always had like a Squall outfit that we would get by being subscribed for so long. So now we can literally be Squall, because one of the actual items that you get by getting the, I think it's the collector's edition, or is it the collector's edition or just the game itself? Anyway, you basically get like Squall's sword, like his gunblade, as a weapon.
The original gunblade?
The original gunblade.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you can cosplay as Squall. The outfit is there, but you didn't have the sword. So now you can literally be Squall from top to bottom. So people are pretty happy about that. So, I mean,
and if you're like 13 years old playing the game, then you're really Squall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. So
I kid. I actually like Squall's character.
Yeah.
I think he, for as dumb as Final Fantasy VIII is, Squall is not one of the dumb things about that game. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. To be quite honest, it could be worse.
I think it's like, I get it. I like, he's kind of angsty, but at the same time, the game actually does a really good job of defining why he is the way he is.
Yeah.
So
no, I
think he's a good character. He's just in a game with like a really convoluted plot.
Mm-hmm. Convoluted or too simplistic? And that's kind of the weird thing, right? Like, I would say that by today's standards, Final Fantasy VIII's plot is fairly simplistic.
I think it's the time travel stuff that just is where it just like nosedives into complete like what the heck.
Mm-hmm. Actually, you bring up a very interesting point, because when we talked about Final Fantasy I, there is a time travel element to it, and Final Fantasy VIII, there's also a time travel element to it.
What I like though about how Final Fantasy I handles time travel is that it's actually contextualizing how the players replaying the game, which I thought was actually, it's really neat. It's actually like a really cool idea, especially for the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just interesting to me how we managed to point out that time travel is a fairly common theme in the Final Fantasy universe unexpectedly, right? Like, I mean, even, thinking back to the first game. And the reason why I bring this up is because there are huge rumors that Shadowbringers is going to have some time travel elements to it. In the scene where they show Matoya, the Raktika Greatwood, which is actually where the Vieras live, for anybody who played Final Fantasy XII, it's actually going to be available in Shadowbringers, by the way. It's on fire. The entire forest is on fire in that cutscene. But of course, when you get to it, the forest is, has some charred, trees on it, but those are remnants of like something that occurred many moons ago, which is really odd, and that kind of mystery is kind of prevailing around like before the release of the expansion. Like something happened that makes us go back in time. And, and of course I mentioned the Viera. They are the new race in Final Fantasy XIV. They only tease the female Viera. There are male Viera. In fact, there is lore that says that for every 2 female Viera, there is 1 male Viera that is born, and only until they reach the age of 13 that they realize like what gender they are. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that is pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah, weird lore. So we've talked about time travel and possibly dimensional travel. So this leads us to the next and possibly the biggest announcement that they had. Originally, they were going to announce the 8-man raid for for Shadowbringers, but unfortunately what happened was they kind of ran into some problems, they said, and they couldn't really like announce it, which is really weird. So they're announcing this instead, and the way that they did it is actually really kind of hilarious in a way.
次のアライアンスレイドにもそれに匹敵するぐらいの驚きが待っています。
But this next raid series, however, will prove just as exciting.
では、まずはお二人いるスペシャルゲストクリエイターをご紹介したいと思います。
So, just as last time, we have two special guest creators joining us for this series. Let's meet the first. Roll the
どう
video.
ぞ。僕と同じスクエア・エニックスに所属しているプロデューサー斉藤陽介さんですね。
So many people recognize Square Enix's Saito-san, producer at Square Enix.
ドラゴンクエストシリーズとか
Worked on Dragon Quest
ニーヤシリーズとか
and Nier.
ね。
Yeah.
まあただこの人僕と非常に仲がいいので
Yeah, I mean, he's one of my, best friends.
単に友達呼んできただけかな。
So I don't want people to think that I'm just calling my friends in.
ですのでもう一人ご紹介しましょう。
So we're bringing in a second guest creator. Let's roll the video.
どうぞ。さすが人気者ですね。
Yeah, everybody seems to like Yoko Taro.
ゲームデザイナーそれから脚本家としてさまざまなヒットタイトル関わられている横尾太郎さんを今回スペシャルゲストクリエイターお二人目としてお招きしています。
Renowned game designer will be joining us, Yoko Taro.
ではこのお二人を招いて何をやるのか。
So we have these two. I wonder what they're going to bring us.
ドラゴンクエストかな。
Dragon Quest? Yeah, Dragon Quest.
ではご紹介しましょう。このお二人を招いて展開していくこれからの新しいアライアンスレイドシリーズでは
All right, so let's reveal the official title for our newest Alliance raids. Roll the video.
こちらです。
Yes. Woo.
コウジこれなんて読むの？
You need me to pronounce this for you? Yorha, Dark Apocalypse.
新しいアライアンスレイドタイトルが、こちら「夜派ダークアポカリプス」というシリーズになります。
And so the title of our newest Alliance raid is Yorha, Dark Apocalypse.
でもこれニーヤの最新作にしか見えないね。
This just looks like, yeah, a sequel to Nier.
さあファイナルファンタジー14の世界で、横尾さん斉藤さんたちがどんな世界を描いていくのかそのお二人からメッセージが届いています。
All right, so how will this all fit into the Final Fantasy XIV world? To tell you a little bit more, we have a special message from the two creators.
ただし
But
この二人喋るのすごい早いです。
these guys talk really fast.
で字幕は入ってます。
There are subtitles.
必死に読んでくださいね。
But you have to pay close attention.
それではスペシャルゲストクリエイター斉藤さん、横尾さんからのメッセージをご覧いただきましょう。
All right, so let's take a look at the video from our two guest creators. Roll the tape.
はい、というわけで発表になりましたって横尾さん。
そうなんですよね。さっきイラストがすごいきらびやかなやつが出たと思うんですけども、実際のところ話は何一つ決まってないですね。
いやいや、ちょっと決まってるでしょ。もう
いやもう、全く決まってないです。
決まってないって。
はい。まあ実際のところ僕の中で決まってるんですけども。
決まってるんかい。
そうなんですよ。斉藤さんの離婚の話でもしていこうかな。
そういうのまたね、本当に世界的な規模でこれやってるからね。
あ、そうなんですね。
はい、そうなんです。
はい、じゃあ
違う、そもそも俺たちだって今日ね、これパリでやってるらしいんだけど、
これパリなんですか？
パリで美味しいもの食べさせてくれるって言うから、まあじゃあやろうかみたいなね。流れだったのに気がついたら会社の会議室で俺たちだけ映像になってるんですよ。
で、皆さんこんにちは。
こんにちは。でね、ファイナルファンタジー14は最近麻雀がちょっと前に実装されまして、
麻雀なんかやってるんですか？
ファイナルファンタジー14の中で麻雀ができるんですよ。その次にニーヤってね、もう本当土地狂ってるとしか思えないでしょ。吉田直樹。大丈夫ですか？
吉田さん、ファイナルファンタジー終わらせる気ですか？
本当の意味でのファイナルにする気ですね。
そうですか。
やばいでしょ、その時点でね。でもまあこの話もね、本当にいただいた時はね、嬉しかったですよね。
そうですね。嬉しかったっていうか、僕吉田さん頭おかしくなったのかって思いましたね。正直。
だってほら、ファイナルファンタジー好きじゃない、横尾さん。
そうですね。はい。
一番最後にやったファイナルファンタジー何？
最後にやったファイナルファンタジー、僕12。
あ、12やったの？
はい。
じゃあ、まあ思ったより最近だな、6ぐらいかと思ってた。
はい。12の前はファイナルファンタジー2なんですけど。
あんま好きじゃない。
いやいや、やってます。
それあんま好きじゃない。
はい、大好きです。
はい。まあでも14ね、やっぱり14の世界の中でね、ニーヤ、まあある意味ニーヤオートマタってもう完結してるじゃないですか。
はい。
だからそれがまた続きというか、あの世界を遊びたいっていう方が大勢いるんで、
いや、そんなんいないっす。
いや、200、300人は世界でいると思うよ。
てか斉藤さん、俺たち話が長い。
じゃあまあそこら辺でね、ぜひ楽しみにねお待ちいただきたいなと思いますので、また機会があればね、続報とかお話できればなと思っております。それではありがとうございました。
さよなら。
お楽しみに。
吉田はファイナルファンタジーを終わらせようとしているって言われた。
Yes, you're gonna make this the final Fantasy, huh?
Oh my god!
Yeah, and Yoshida, it's kind of funny when the graphic came up, Yoshida was like, "So this is really just a sequel to Nier, right?" Like, and of course, like the crowd just went nuts. Like, you could hear like, "Oh my god," like it's kind of crazy, like how many like Nier fans there are and stuff. And of course they released this video where Yosuke Saito and Yoko Taro were doing like a comedy routine.
Dude, that was the best part. That was the best.
Yeah.
Where, like, Yoko Taro was like, "Oh, I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy." And Santos like, "Oh, which ones did you play?" And he's like, "Oh, last one I played was 12. Okay, what about the one before that? 2?"
yeah. It's kind of crazy.
And Santos like, "You don't really sound like a big fan." And then this is the best. Like afterwards, all that Yoko Taro says is Daisuke. I don't know what that means, but in the subtitles it says "I love Final Fantasy trademark."
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely in tune with Yoko Taro's humor, and that's one thing that I appreciate about it. And a lot of people were really concerned first and foremost because they were like, how is Nier gonna tie in with Final Fantasy XIV? Well, first of all, Akihiko Yoshida, the designer of the characters in Nier Automata, is the same character designer of Final Fantasy XIV, the same character designer for Final Fantasy XII, Tactics, Ogre Battle, all of which exist in Final Fantasy XIV. You kind of getting the gist here. In terms of the characters themselves, they will look pretty accurate. for better or worse and stuff. Like I think and from a stylistic standpoint, right? Now with this talk about time travel or dimensional travel, we don't really know if it is time travel or dimensional travel. It is now possible to travel into a different world and be part of this story. Because what's actually really interesting about that artwork, Daniel, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's 2B, obviously, but represented as 2P, quote unquote, the white version, white dressed, Lolita dressed version of 2B. But there are other silhouettes in the background. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, I saw the image, and man, this is gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is gonna be cool. I see in the background, I see a Goliath,
Mm-hmm.
which is like one of the bosses that you fight in the game, and you also see, like, of course, you also see a bunch of the androids that you typically fight in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, this is gonna be so cool. I'm not. I mean, I've barely played Final Fantasy XIV, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Just because MMOs for me are hard to like get into.
Mm-hmm.
But like, this might push me.
Yeah.
This might push me into it.
Mm-hmm. Well, like it's kind of interesting, right? Like, because a lot of people like yourself, like I remember when 2B was announced for Soul Calibur 6, and people were like, "Man, now it's time for me to actually like buy Soul Calibur because 2B is there."
But
but the difference is like that's just a fighting game character, right? Like there may be a story, but it's not going to be like as detailed as something like a full-blown storyline written just for a game, right? And having finished the Return to Ivalice storyline, I can tell you that the way that they did that storyline and how it ties in with so many other Final Fantasy aspects, right? And and I actually want to talk about this for a sec because this is really important. So the way that Return to Ivalice starts, you're basically summoned by this theater troupe that came from Garlemald. Again, there goes that name again, Garlemald. And the story behind the Garlean Empire is that they were the forsaken humans that or whatever kind of race, like elves or what have you, that don't have the ability to use ether / magic. And so because they're unable to use magic, they're forced to use and create weaponry. Again, another tie-in with Nier Automata there, in order to kind of do very magical things, right? So this theater troupe comes from that nation, and they have like an airship called a Prima Vista. And for people who actually have played Final Fantasy IX, they'll probably remember the name Prima Vista because there is yet another theater group that actually used the Prima Vista to travel around with, their theater troupe and stuff in Final Fantasy IX, where the descendants of Ramza and Alma Buelve actually exist. And they want you to save their father from something some bad shit that happens to him in Rabanastre. And that's a very condensed version of the storyline. But the bottom line is not only were they able to tie in the storyline of Final Fantasy Tactics in there, but also Final Fantasy XII as well, because a mention of Princess Ashe is there. Fran is part of the storyline. Several main characters from the Tactics and 12 storyline is there, like Sidolphus Orlando is actually a boss in the last raid, which is really freaking insane. And so, Delita shows up. So there's so many elements that...
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, it is literally that. I mean, in fact, the last... It's so funny because, like, the last raid that we did is the first ever map that you play in Final Fantasy Tactics, which is the Orban Monastery. And even when you finish the raid, it plays like the very first song that you hear once you start, Final Fantasy Tactics, the one that plays like while you're in a monastery, that kind of serene tone and stuff. Like Princess Ophelia is being told like, hey, you need to leave, da 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 da, or the lead is on his way, or something like that. So it felt like Final Fantasy Tactics and 12 in every single way, which is insane to think about because, again, this is an MMO, right? It's, you know, it's very difficult to try to just chuck a new game into some other game and say, hey, it's going to work. The one thing that I will tell you, though, Daniel, is that during Stormblood, the development of Stormblood, they have been testing different ways to, you know, to try to test like different kinds of gameplay. Now, what does that mean? You know how like
because when I played the game, it seemed pretty straightforward. It didn't really even seem to me as I played it that there would be more than that. So
yeah. But in Stormblood, they introduced something called a duty action, and in Heavensward, they I know, and in Heavensward, they introduced the active time maneuver. Now, active time maneuver is a play on active time battle in Final Fantasy, but what it really is a QTE event. Couple that with duty actions, it's like there's a lot of kind of dynamic scenes that could play out.
I was sincerely hoping you were going to say there's a lot of shit.
Buddy. There is a duty action that actually turns, in one of the raids, that actually turns you into kind of like a little flying ship. You can't shoot with the ship, but it turns you into something else. And so I was kind of thinking the other day, after the announcement, I'm like, well, they have a boss right now that basically shoots out like, you know, like shmup patterns, like literally like, you know, huge waves of circles that just, you know, come out pattern wise and stuff that you have to dodge as a person. You have an element where you turn yourself into a rocket ship of some sort that you can control and fly and stuff. So I'm like thinking like, wait a second, they have been building up to this raid for the past 2 expansions and nobody saw it. All the tools that Yoko Taro can use to practically rebuild Nier Automata in Final Fantasy XIV are already there for him to use.
Wow.
That's for the past 4 years. So, yeah, are we going to have like a section of the Nier Automata raid that we're probably going to turn into a ship? Probably. Are we going to see like a bunch of shmup sections? Most likely. Are we going to be fighting the Goliath? You bet your ass we will. So, but instead of you doing it alone, you're going to be fighting him with like 23 other people alongside you. And that to me is like the most exciting thing because, you know, as you know, Final Fantasy XIV is kind of like an RPG theme park, if you will, especially if you're like a Square Enix fan, because Ogre Battle's there, like I said, Final Fantasy XIV, and all the Final Fantasies are there, and now Nier is joining that. So I'm just as excited to see this as you are, and honestly, like, this is going to be a wild ride with Yoko Taro writing the story. It's like what he said. It's like, you know, it's like Yoshida wants this to be the final Final Fantasy. You know?
Yo, that was great when Yoko Taro was like, "Oh, what's Yoshida thinking? Like,
yeah,
has he got nuts?"
Yeah, he just went insane. That's what happened. You know, I was like, man, that's really freaking ridiculous, man. But yeah, super excited. And honestly, like, I know you're so early on and stuff, but I urge you to push through. And I will say though, this is not our plug segment, but might as well do this right now. Right now, if you are a Twitch Prime member, meaning you are an Amazon Prime member, and you can do that by you can actually sign up by going to bit.ly/Amazon Backlog Battle, by the way. You can get Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn, the starter kit, for free, all the way up until May 3rd. That's right, you can get Final Fantasy XIV for free until May 3rd if you're an Amazon Prime or a Twitch Prime member. So if you are that, if you have that, I would highly recommend getting it now, which, by the way, includes 30 days of free game time. No subscription during those 30 days. It is free to play. So, yeah, Daniel, you're an Amazon Prime member, right? You should probably take advantage of this thing.
Yeah, I have that actually, so I'm going to claim it.
Nice. That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And man, level 80. That sounds like a long time, but Trust me when I say that once, Oh, by the way, I will say this. So when you guys are listening to this, you can pre-order Shadowbringers right now. And for you, Daniel, if you do buy Shadowbringers, you will get Heavensward and Stormblood for free. So yeah, that always happens when you buy expansions and stuff. All the previous expansions are free, but you do need to have the starter kit. So you're kind of set in a way. But Heavensward and Stormblood are not available for people who pre-ordered that until the actual launch of the game, which really sucks. But at the very least, you can catch up with a Realm Reborn and stuff like that. Get yourself past those quests, and you'll be ready for 20 more levels or something like that. But if you pre-ordered a game, right, you will get an accessory that basically adds plus 30% experience to every single enemy that you kill. So it's basically an accessory that's going to be available on March 1st for anybody who actually has the game itself. So if you let's say you're Daniel and you basically get Final Fantasy XIV starter kit right now, and then you decide to pre-order Shadowbringers right now, which by the way is $40. So it's not bad. You're getting, for $40, you're getting 3 expansions in a way. You will get the earring for free on March 1st. And you'll just basically zip by in terms of levels. And you can get a 30% experience boost all the way up to level 70. So I think that's a good deal.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is. And actually, if you ever do... one last thing. I know I'm kind of bouncing all over the place when it comes to Final Fantasy XIV. So the way that the patches work is that the 24-man raids are always updated on the odd numbered patches. So technically, the release of Shadowbringers is 5.0. So that's even, right? Normally, the patch schedule is that major patches release every 3 months. So the game is coming out July 2nd officially, so we can expect the first Nier Automata raid to drop in October. And then the storyline gets updated every 6 months. And there's basically 3 major updates for the Nier Automata raid. So that's a whole year of Nier Automata right there. Yeah. Kind of exciting. October.
It is very exciting.
Yeah. October. That's the date.
Yeah,
Anyways.
I'm looking at my Twitch Prime, and I see the code for the starter kit, so gonna have to claim that.
Yeah. By the way, you do have that code, but I would recommend playing the free trial all the way to 35, then redeem the code. Because you don't want to have the 30 days start when you redeem the code right away, because you can play the game for free up until 35. Might as well do that, so this deal is PC only.
Sense.
Yeah, this deal is PC only though, so so there's that. So yeah, Final Fantasy XIV, yay, I'm still in it. Still addicted. Okay, so
good stuff.
The next thing that I kind of want to talk about, and I promise we'll talk about what Daniel wants to talk about in a little bit, but one of the games that Daniel and I have been playing quite a bit, well, at least I am, I actually finished the game and stuff, is Resident Evil 2, the remake. And I can't believe we actually never talked about this last week, because this was actually one of the most striking things about the game when you first kind of get past the gas station scene in the very beginning. We're talking about the opening title sequence for Resident Evil 2. And in case you guys haven't seen it and stuff like that, we're actually going to be playing it right now on the video version of the podcast. And it's very snappy and kind of sleek, right? Like, even though like it's kind of creepy and stuff, like it sets the tone for Resident Evil 2 like really well, right? Like, what did you feel like when you watched that sequence? Because that's really freaking cool.
I thought the whole thing looked really awesome. Like, I was actually watching it with my parents, and they were like, "Oh man, this is like a movie."
Mm-hmm.
And just everything about it looks so cool. Visually, the music, just everything about it. It felt like the start of a movie.
Mm-hmm. Or even a TV show, right? Because that was like one of the first things that popped into my head. I'm like, is this a TV show? This is kind of crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it's, so that opening is actually made by none other than a person who will be familiar with Metal Gear fans. His name is Kyle Cooper. He actually runs a title sequence company called Prologue. And let me just read to you, Daniel, like what movies and TV shows he's worked on and video games, okay? So he worked on... So one of the first ones he worked on was Home Alone 2. But he's also worked on like really old stuff like The Laser Man, She-Devil, Bird on a Wire, the first Home Alone and stuff, the Newsies, So if you can kind of remember like those opening sequences and stuff, they do have some form of style to it. True Lies,
yeah.
he worked on that.
Home Alone's opening is like iconic.
Yeah, exactly. Braveheart, he worked on that. And the next movie that I'm going to mention is kind of crazy because that was actually one of my favorite openings at the time, which was around 1995. 7.
I love that movie.
Yeah. And if you can remember, it's got like, the Nine Inch Nails playing in the background and stuff like that. And then you see this montage of like really kind of gnarly looking things. And you're like, wow, this is a very different, kind of opening sequence, like for the time and stuff. He also worked on Mission Impossible, let's see, Mimic, Men in Black. I'm just listing a whole bunch. Like there's so many like kind of things that he worked on. But as far
been around,
he has been around. So the first, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, he worked on the titles for those. Minority Report, of course, for video gamers. He worked on Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. He worked on Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. He worked on
my god, I love that opening.
Yeah, he worked on Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. He is currently working on Death Stranding. For movies, he worked on Tron Legacy, Tropic Thunder, Iron Man.
Hey, that's a good movie.
No, I'm not saying that it wasn't. American Horror Story was, those have really great openings. Tron Legacy has great openings. And also, of course, Resident Evil 2, the newest one. And by the way, this is not the only trip he had with zombies. He also did the opening for the Walking Dead TV show. So, yeah. Very experienced with zombies. But, if you think about all those openings and stuff, like you said, with Home Alone, they are iconic. Like, they really do a good job of setting the mood for those specific kinds of movies and TV shows, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I remember the opening of Metal Gear Solid 2 saying, like, wow, that tanker opening and stuff where the titles pop up, I'm like, holy cow, that is, when Snake is like in the raincoat, in the rain, just smoking, and he throws the cigarette, and then the camera pans to show him on, a bridge, and then he just jumps off the bridge onto a tanker. That is... what?
He's right on schedule. He'll know soon enough.
What? Come on.
And then you see him like land, and then the stealth gear like malfunctions, and there's electricity, and then he's looking up, and it's the logo, the title. It's like,
Yep.
it's so good.
Yeah. So, you know, I was elated to learn that Kyle Cooper actually worked on Resident Evil 2 because, you know, watching that intro really set the mood for me, like, right away. Because it was so, like, you know, you saw the city, you know, you saw Raccoon City, you saw, like, you know, just it was really dark and really kind of mysterious. You don't know what's going to come around the corner and stuff. It basically almost summed up the entirety of the experience in just 1 minute. And that is a tall order for anybody to be able to capture, right? But he did in this opening, and I'm still kind of in awe every time I watch that opening. It's like one of the most striking openings I've ever seen, like, anywhere. And that sounds like hyperbole, but like, I've watched this guy's work in every single one of those movies that I've mentioned, and it's just, you know, there's people who, it's like UI design in video games. Sometimes some people just, you know, say, well, we need like a life indicator. We don't need to like make that match like the game world or the mood of the game, whatever, man. But like Kyle Cooper just has this like vision of like how to represent, you know, the media so well in like a short span of time that it's kind of, you know, I want to like know like what's in his brain, you know, like how he goes through his creative process to build these amazing titles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So from that conversation, let's talk about Amazon, because we've been using Amazon links for the past, what is it now, like 4 or 5 years for our podcast and stuff, right?
That's a long time.
That's a long time. And the reason why we use Amazon links and stuff like that is so that way you guys can take advantage of a lot of the sales that Amazon has, whether it's, subscribing to Amazon Prime, student or otherwise, or even becoming a member of audible.com, for our audiobooks, right, Daniel? That was a big topic last year, the beginning of last year.
Maybe a little too big. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Promise. No audiobooks for the foreseeable future. We use Amazon a lot, and I'm a huge fan of Man in the High Castle, which is a great, kind of TV show that Amazon has. Ridley Scott actually produced it. Did you know that?
I did not know that. That's interesting. He's a very talented director. He did Blade Runner, which I know you're not a fan of, but you're a pleb with poor taste, and I am a refined gentleman and that realizes the quality of Blade Runner.
Well, I also have Gladiator, by the way, which he also directed that. So, I mean, that's pretty good, right? I think.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
That's a good movie. And, there's so much that you could buy from Amazon.com. So if you want to pick up anything from Amazon.com, use our link, bit.ly/Amazon Backlog Battle. That's all one word. And if you're actually watching the video version of the podcast right now, you're going to see that link pop up on the bottom right corner of the screen. It's bit.ly/Amazon Backlog Battle. Now, you're probably saying, well, why is this not an Amazon link? Well, we want to make it easy for you to remember, right? So we're using a bit.ly link so that you can just type in bit.ly/Amazon Backlog Battle. I mean, that's pretty easy to remember, right, Daniel?
Yeah, pretty easy.
Pretty easy. And, this will actually take you to the Amazon video games page. But don't be fooled. As soon as you actually land on that page, you're basically telling Amazon.com, hey, for the Love of Video Games podcast actually referred me to Amazon. And anything that I purchase, kind of give them a little bit of money back. It's not going to make us rich. It's not going to make us millionaires. But every little bit helps. I do the podcast and I create a lot of videos on YouTube and stuff like that just for you guys, and the money that we receive from Amazon purchases and all that stuff goes towards improving a lot of the technology, upgrading software, upgrading hardware. Remember, Daniel, we talked about it on Discord last week about how my computer is about almost 10 years old, so so every little bit helps. But in the event that you don't feel comfortable buying things on Amazon for any sort of reason, you can also donate to us directly. You can go to mybacklogbattle.tv/donate, and you'll actually see, the actual link on the screen right now if you're actually watching the video version of the podcast. And of course, the Amazon link and the donation link is actually on the description of the video as well. And of course, the description of the podcast. And like I said, any donation actually goes towards improvement of hardware, improvement of software, and we're able to, basically make things faster and create faster things and better things and the whole shebang, right? It's
the $1 million man, essentially.
Well, I mean, I don't want to say that I'm gonna have or you're gonna have $1 million.
No, the better, stronger, faster.
Okay.
We can rebuild him.
Yes, this is true, but basically the bottom line is all these donations and commissions and stuff always go directly into the podcast, into the videos, and and we work really hard to try to deliver some really good videos and really good podcasts for you guys. So hopefully you guys can kind of take the time to kick back some money here and there, and we'll definitely appreciate it, right, Daniel?
Of course, every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps. So podcasting is expensive. That's kind of crazy to think about. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it may not seem like it to you guys because you're just oh, here's this audio format that's just conveniently made for me for my audio pleasure. But, it takes work. It's not just something that just comes up out of nowhere.
But
this
also,
is not into the internet.
Well, also, remember, we're also doing video now, too. So it's not just audio anymore, And if you guys...
That is a good point.
Yeah. And of course, if you've seen last week's episode and this week's episode, we're adding a little bit more video content for the people who are actually watching this on YouTube. So that's kind of like a way to say thank you to the people who have supported us, over the past several years and stuff. So yeah, good stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, speaking of good stuff, did you think I was going to transition to Kingdom Hearts 3 that way?
Given your history with the series, no.
So, yes, we're actually going to be talking about Kingdom Hearts 3, but let's make it clear, though. You're not going to spoil anything, right, Daniel?
Absolutely not. No story spoilers.
Okay. Because I don't know about you, but a lot more people these days are very sensitive when it comes to spoilers. Like, it's weird because, like, every time I make a video, people ask me, like, is it going to be spoiler free? I'm like, of course it's going to be spoiler free. I'm not in the business of spoiling things. So, anyways, Kingdom Hearts 3, go.
Okay, so right now I want to say I'm roughly halfway through the game. So I've gone through, here are all the worlds that I've gone through, okay? So Olympus, Toy Story, Frozen is, I'm actually currently in Frozen, Tangled, I've been to Twilight Town, and Monstropolis, is, Monsters Inc.
Okay.
So those are all the worlds I've been to.
And have you seen all these movies?
Okay, let's see. I've definitely seen Hercules. I've seen Frozen. I've seen Toy Story, a number of times.
Okay.
Have not seen Tangled.
Ah.
But I've seen Monsters Inc. Both Monsters Inc. actually.
Okay. All right. So that's very interesting. So given that you've actually watched a lot of these movies and stuff like that, and we played pretty much a good chunk of Kingdom Hearts games. I played 2. You played 12 or 13. I don't know, however many.
I've played all of the Kingdom Hearts games, basically.
Yeah. How confident would you say, like, that their representation of, like, the movies are? So, because you've watched all of them, obviously, and now you've played them.
It's, like, perfect. I mean, I obviously can't talk about Tangled, but, like, aside from that, like, yeah, these guys are like slavishly recreating these movies in video game form. It's amazing. Actually, with Frozen, I will say that they're a little too slavish because, like, so far, it seems to be just the plot of the movie. Whereas with Toy Story, it was not any of the movies. It was like more of like an original story. Same thing with Monsters Inc. Like it was his own story. And I heard with Tangled, I haven't seen it, but like based on what I heard, that it's also basically just the movie again. Which is weird.
It is weird. And, like, I have seen hide nor hair or anything about this game at all. So it's interesting to me because, like, thinking about, like, my memories of Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, right? For the most part, it's kind of weird, like, which ones kind of follow the storylines of the movies and which ones, are just kind of like, all right, original story and stuff like that. So, I was kind of curious and wanted to ask that question. I'm happy you're able to answer it, but let's kind of, remove ourselves from the movies, the interpretation and stuff, because I don't think there should be any worry that there's any sort of misrepresentation of the movies and the characters in Kingdom Hearts 3, right? I mean, they're pretty much intact.
Yeah, I would imagine that they worked very closely with Pixar, and I don't know the name of the animation studio behind Frozen and Tangled, but again, I imagine that they worked very closely with those people in order to get it, like, just right, because, like, if you were to compare screenshots, I think obviously, like, the movies will look better just because, like, the rendering technology is more advanced. But I feel like there will be some shots where it would be like, wow, you almost can't tell the difference. Like playing the game without being able to compare it to the movies actively, like side by side. Like if I had stumbled upon a cutscene, I would have mistaken it for the movie, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah, the visual fidelity of the game is absolutely phenomenal. Is it running at like 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second? Do you know?
So here's an interesting thing about that. So it depends on which console you have, right? So if you have a base Xbox, rest in peace. But
Oh, damn. Okay.
but if you have like an Xbox One X, or if you have a PlayStation 4 Pro, then the games will run better.
Mhm.
But even with the base consoles, the game gives you an option. There's standard mode where it will try to hit 60 most of the time,
Okay.
or it'll have a stable mode where it's just 30.
Mm-hmm.
I personally pick the standard mode because I want it to reach 60 as much as it can, even if it isn't always able to.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like I don't notice for the most part. Like it feels pretty much 60 most of the time. And
Okay.
if it ever dips, then again, I don't really notice.
That is interesting though, because it's like that option there is there's not a lot of video games in this generation that actually offer that sort of option. Like it's like it's like visuals or performance, that sort of thing. So, have you ever tried the stable version?
Not really. I mean, I really value frames per second. So
Okay.
more than resolution. I mean, resolution is important, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't want to play 240p. I want 1080p.
Right.
But at the same time, if I had a choice between a lower resolution and a higher frame rate, I'm always going to pick higher frame rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the only thing that I'm kind of wondering, and this is kind of getting into a bit of the technical side of it, is if it has resolution scaling, So, like, if you pick standard, that if it drops, below 60, it just kind of lowers the resolution for, a frame or two, Because I've seen a lot of Unreal Engine games kind of do that to maintain 60. So, and given that this is now the Unreal Engine, so, just kind of curious, but it's okay. It's... this is not going to kill me because, I don't even have the game, so why would it?
Now,
yes.
I will say that Kingdom Hearts 3, if you're running it on a base PS4, which is what I'm using, it's actually running at 960p.
Okay.
So it's not as low as 720, but it's not as high as 1080. But I don't think the difference is too bothersome.
Mm-hmm.
Although if you're using a base Xbox One, that's 720p.
Oof. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
But
yeah.
PS4 Pro, Xbox One X, they go up to 4K.
Great. I mean, it should. It's kind of a requirement at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So what else can you tell me about Kingdom Hearts 3?
So there is one thing in particular that I think is a net positive for this game, and that is how Keyblades are used.
Okay.
So how would you say Keyblades are used in previous games? As far as just equipping them?
I mean, from the last, I'm just trying to remember, Kingdom Hearts 2 and stuff. That was the Kingdom Hearts that introduced dual keyblading, right? Am I right? Yeah.
Yes.
So, and then I want to say that each keyblade had its own ultimate or something, right?
Well, each keyblade had its own skill attached to it.
Right. Okay.
So the point that I'm getting at though is keyblades in prior games are just used like equipment.
Okay.
Right? It's just well, this one has better stats, so I'm just going to use this one from now on and forget the other ones, right?
Yeah.
That is no longer the case.
Okay.
So you can actually, every single keyblade can now be upgraded.
Okay.
All right. Now you might be asking, okay, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
The point is that now every keyblade also has something called a form change.
Okay.
So when you're fighting in battle, you'll see 3 arrows start building up as you're fighting, and once it maxes out, you can then transform your keyblade, and depending on what keyblade it is, it can be a hammer, it can be dual wielding crossbows, it can be a magic wand, it can be claws. Every single keyblade is a different form change.
So it kind of turns the Keyblade into a different kind of weapon?
Yes.
I see. And I'm guessing it's probably only available for a limited amount of time?
Yes.
Okay.
So it will once it's activated, a meter will start depleting while it's active, and when it runs out, if you have that, well, you have to have the skill equipped for it to do this. But typically, when it runs out, it will then activate the finish, or you could just press the triangle button and it will start the finish anyways. And it's usually like a room clearing type attack, or it depends on the weapon, right? Like if you got the magic wand, Sora like summons a tower and he starts like shooting lasers at everyone.
Interesting. Is this the one where like he basically summons like, Disney theme park attractions, or is that something else?
That's actually something else.
Okay.
So that's actually something I'm not too hot on in this game.
Oh, okay.
So whenever you fight enemies, some of them will have like a green circle around them, and that green circle will slowly start to deplete until it runs out, and then you miss your chance. But if you just hit that enemy once, you don't even need to kill him. You just need to hit the enemy once. You can then use the form attraction.
Okay.
And I don't like this because it makes a game that's already pretty easy even easier.
Okay.
Because usually it just like, once you use it, chances are everyone's dead.
Wow. Okay.
They're really powerful. So that's, again, there have been people that have been complaining that this game is too easy. And I'm going to have to agree. I am playing it on standard. So I'm kind of kicking myself. I'm like, I should have picked proud mode instead.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't sure. Whenever I play a new game, I almost always play it on normal. So I just went with it. But looking back, like, yeah, I guess I should have gone proud. But yeah, I'm really hoping, crossing my fingers, that one day Kingdom Hearts 3 gets a patch that puts in an extra difficulty like they did with Kingdom Hearts 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because the original version of Kingdom Hearts 2 only had easy, normal, hard. But in the final mix version, in the re-release with like extra content, it also had a critical mode, which, is like the hardest difficulty. So I'm kind of hoping maybe we'll get that for Kingdom Hearts 3 in a patch.
I hope so. That sounds reasonable and stuff. Usually it's kind of interesting because like when I play games that I really like, I normally start with 2 playthroughs. One base, if it allows me, right? Like one playthrough is on normal, the other one's the hard difficulty. I actually did exactly that in Resident Evil 2. And I kind of found that hardcore was just a little bit too difficult, but it was actually manageable. So I actually like played much of the game through hardcore. Like I actually started another file, and I actually, I had another file where I was playing with my wife for the story, and I have another file in hardcore where I literally just skip like the story, and I'm like, all right, well, we got to go through this with the least amount of ink ribbons and stuff, and maybe 2 or 3 hours. I don't know how feasible that is. We'll see. But
oh my god, yeah, I heard about that. They brought back ink ribbons for hardcore mode. That's insane.
It's kind of nice. I mean, it's kind of nice in a bad way for hardcore, but it's great. Anyways, back to Kingdom Hearts. So basically you're telling me that those kind of attraction sums, so you said form attraction or something like that, right?
No. So the Keyblades have something called the form change.
Okay, form change.
Yeah, the attractions, I think they're just called attractions. I don't know.
Oh, that's weird. So basically, like, they're just kind of like a room clearing kind of graphic and stuff, and that's basically it, right?
I mean, each of them has like a little gimmick. Mm-hmm. Like the pirate ship one, you could keep pressing X, and the pirate ship will keep swaying back and forth and doing more damage. My favorite one, because it actually requires some skill, and it doesn't just automatically clear the room, is the one where you get in like those little cars that let you shoot. Mm-hmm. So you could then it goes into first person, and then you can shoot at all the enemies.
Is it is it kind of like Buzz Lightyear, like the car?
Yes.
Okay, so
it is basically that ride.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so like it goes into first person, and when you shoot at the enemies, depending on like whether you kill them or how you shoot them, you'll get points. So I'm not really sure what the points do, to be honest, but I guess it's for like a trophy or something. I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows? Well, that's kind of disappointing. I mean, I thought that it was like, that it was gonna do something big or something like that. Like it's like an occasional summon, but I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, no, like honestly, I got to the point where like unless I really just wanted to clear the room with it, because it happens almost every battle. Like I just started like ignoring it because it kind of takes out the fun a little bit. I'd rather just like fight the enemies.
And that's kind of the thing too, right? Like, Kingdom Hearts has always been known for kind of like having good gameplay. So it's like having this room clearing attraction thing kind of takes away from the fun of the game, because now it's like, well, they're all dead. You're like, what? Like, I want to do combos and do some crazy crap in the air, and now it's gone.
Well, I mean, in fairness, you can ignore it.
Right.
Like, because the way it works is like when you hit the enemy, the game gives you the option to use it, but you could just as easily choose not to.
Okay, so this is not something you can accidentally trigger?
No.
Okay.
So the way it works is like the game will have like commands like that are timed, that are like stacked on top of each other above your like command list, basically.
Right.
And let's say you have like a form change ready, and then you have a grand spell ready. Like a grand spell is basically if you, let's say, use Fyra a bunch of times, then it will let you use Faraga as like a grand spell.
Okay.
So you have those, and then you have the attraction, right? If you press R2, it will like shuffle between the abilities.
I see. Okay, so it's kind of like you're using like R2 as kind of like a modifier on what the top one is. Then it just lets you choose like I don't want it. Let's say like it's defaulted to the attraction. You're like, I don't want to use that. You just press R2 and it'll switch to whatever's next. Got it. Okay. All right. I kind of understand how that works. I mean, yeah. The command system in Kingdom Hearts is so easy to use. It's like, like when I first saw screenshots of like the original Kingdom Hearts and I saw the command list, I'm like, well, it's probably going to function the way that I think it is. So, I don't expect it to be different in this game. So, but one of the things that you did mention to me, though, when we were kind of like talking and passing about Kingdom Hearts 3 is just how fast the game actually like just gets you into the action. Like, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, yeah. Kingdom Hearts 1 has the Destiny Islands. Kingdom Hearts 2 has the whole thing with Roxas. None of that in Kingdom Hearts 3. In Kingdom Hearts 3, you watch a few cutscenes, and then boom, you're in Mount Olympus, and then you're like going ham on Heartless.
Was there like any context as to why? I mean, is it enough context like for players who maybe never played the side stories? If you jump from like 2 to 3, like that, you'll understand like what actually happened, or no?
No.
Okay.
Because it picks up right where Dream Drop Distance left off.
Okay. So practically that's still a requirement, like pretty much.
Basically.
Dang. Okay.
I mean, I would say at least there's probably like summary videos you can watch on YouTube to get yourself up to speed. I was actually watching one that I thought was pretty funny and I recommend, called A Good Enough Summary of Kingdom Hearts by Barry Kramer.
Actually, somebody linked that in our Discord today. It's kind of funny to say that.
Yeah, it's like a very like low budget ish looking animation. Like it's not really even like animated for the most part. It's just like these crude drawings, but that they look good enough to like where what it is, but like it's kind of crudely drawn in like a kind of a funny way.
Is there?
It's a funny video.
Is there like a pack-in one summary like in any of the menus in Kingdom Hearts 3? Because I thought they were gonna do something like that. I thought like
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there is, but the thing is, like, I already know all this stuff, so I didn't really feel the need to look at it. I was, oh yeah, okay. I think I'm remembering now. Yeah, there was like a little narration. There was like a book that opened, and there was like a girl that was like, "Do you remember this story?" And it shows Sora in Kingdom Hearts 1, and I'm like, and I noped out. I was just like, "Don't need to see this. I played that game enough. Thank you very much."
Okay. So that's at the very beginning?
It's in the title screen menu.
Okay.
I think it's called like Memory Archive or something. That's probably not what it's called, but whatever.
Close enough. So there are tools to smoothen the transition out if somehow you skipped out on 10 other video games in the series.
Somehow.
Like me, potentially, if I ever, pick up part 3, that's going to be the first thing. It's going to be interesting to kind of see, whenever that does happen, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how, I jump from 2 to 3, if there's really if there is at least some form of cohesion outside of like watching the summaries, I know I'm tempting fate, and I completely understand that for any Kingdom Hearts fans like pulling their hair out saying like, no, you have to play the games or watch a summary. That's kind of not the point. The point is like, this is named part 3. It's numbered 3. So the logical, not that there's much of that with the way that the story is told, like, a passing observer would be like, all right, you go from 2 to 3, right? Okay, so let's freaking do this.
That reminds me, that meme with with the 2 Spider-Mans, Miles Morales and
yes.
and you have like Peter Parker, and he's like looking really serious, and like Miles is just like looking goofy with like his little play mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I saw one where Miles represented Kingdom Hearts fans that only played 1 and 2, and Peter Parker were Kingdom Hearts fans that played all the games in the series.
That's funny. That's too funny. You should send that over to me because I want to be able to show that to like the video people.
Oh god, I saw that on Twitter like weeks ago. It's lost in the ether.
No, we got to find it. We got to find it. Damn it. So, okay. Well, you're having fun. How many hours are you in?
30-ish, 35.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Maybe 40, something like that. A lot of people were complaining that the game was like really, really short.
Quote unquote, really, really short. What is it? Like 25 to 30 hours?
People are, I think the people who have beaten the game in 25 hours, I think those people just didn't take their time and they're just like rushing through it. The reason I've put so many hours into it is, well, for one, I'm actually like doing the gummy ship stuff. I think a lot of people are ignoring the gummy ships, and I actually like the gummy ship stuff in this game a lot. Like,
okay,
because you could literally just fly around space, like however you want. Like it's you just have this playground of outer space to just like roam around in and like shoot at stuff. It's actually really good.
That's cool.
And at first I was ignoring it, and then I realized that like some of the boss fights that you have to do in the gummy ship were getting really hard and long and tedious. And then I was like, okay, let me actually do the gummy ship stuff. And then I was actually having a lot of fun just like blowing stuff up and getting collectibles and making better gummy ships. But anyways, I think people are just like rushing through it, and even ignoring the gummy ship stuff, there's also all the treasure chests that you can find and the lucky emblems.
Yeah, lucky emblems I heard are pretty much like hidden Mickeys, right?
Yes.
Okay. So in case people don't know what hidden Mickeys are, it's literally like a real thing. If you go to a Disney theme park and stuff, there are Mickeys hidden everywhere. And I'll give you a free one in the event that you can find this, or this is actually set up. In the ballroom in the Haunted Mansion, there are saucers and plates that are actually organized in a Mickey head fashion. So that's your first one. Good luck finding the rest, because they're kind of a pain to find. But practically, I would imagine it's kind of the same idea in Kingdom Hearts 3, right?
Yeah, like you will find like paint on the floor, and then the paint is like the emblem.
Okay. Do you have to like do something special for it? Like take a picture or whatever?
Yeah, that's it. Take a picture.
Well, okay. Just like in real life. Okay.
Yep.
So is
and
there, do you get something out of it?
Yes, you do. So whenever you hit a milestone with the lucky emblems, the game will give you stuff. You'll get like an item, or you'll get like an accessory.
Okay.
So or you'll get like AP boost, or things like that.
So it's kind of like the mini medals in Dragon Quest in a way.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, because mini medals have that sort of like, hey, if you get to X number of medals, you turn it in and you get something out of it. So that's very interesting. That's actually a clever way to incorporate that. Okay.
Yeah, and what's great is that the level design in this game is actually really good.
Ooh.
One of my biggest beefs with Kingdom Hearts 2, I think Kingdom Hearts 2's level design is like super boring. It's extremely flat and open, and just like it's just every area just felt like one big empty room.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the case in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Okay.
Like they actually have like a sense of place to them, if you get what I'm saying.
Right. There's verticality. It feels vast, that sort of kind of setup.
Yes.
Okay.
The areas have like more to them. Like there's more platforming to do. It's just so much better design than Kingdom Hearts 2. Like in terms of level design, like
okay,
it actually makes me want to explore the levels and find all the treasure chests and the lucky emblems, which I have. I've done it for every single world so far.
How are you finding the progression system in the game? Is it just kind of typical leveling and stuff? Like, because I mean, you mentioned obviously like the Keyblade upgrades and all that stuff. Like, but is there like any kind of character progression at all?
It's pretty much just leveling. Like it works the same as Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Like you level up and then you get skills, and you have to manage your skills with the amount of like ability points that you have. The only other like thing thrown in there is like improving the Keyblades, which you do that by going to the Moogle shop, and you have to have like a certain amount of ingredients to do it. That's pretty much it.
So it's like crafting, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's pretty cool. I mean, like, of course, character progression withstanding and stuff. Like, it's, I guess that's it. The Keyblade upgrades is like the best way that they can kind of inject some sort of depth to the progression system without having to lock out a whole bunch of kids and trying to make them understand like a highfalutin like progression system that's like 15 layers deep or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think it's a nice compromise.
Yeah, but it's certainly like I think the most interesting thing you talked about today, other than like the the level design and how fast the game starts, and of course like the attractions, is pretty much the Keyblade stuff, because that's that's a game changer right there, I think.
What's really good is that you can hold 3 Keyblades at a time. So
nice.
What I like to do is I have one Keyblade in particular that's really good for long range, and I have that one on all the time. Okay. And the other 2 are the ones where I mix and match with, and like I'll usually use different ones depending on like what the situation is. But there's one in particular I'm using now where you have these claws just because they're fun. They're just really fun to use.
It sounds like it would be fun, like very kind of fast flurry of attacks kind of thing, right? Probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some of them, some of them, it's just one form change. Like the wand is just the wand, like the first Keyblade. Actually, the first Keyblade doesn't really change forms like the Kingdom Key. What it does, it actually allows you to use your moveset from Kingdom Hearts 2 and 1.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's pretty interesting. But the other Keyblades will have a second form change. So like the claws will actually eventually also turn into yo-yos.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and the crossbows will then turn into like one big like magic launcher.
Huh.
So, but the thing is, it's still up to you. Like, if you don't want to, like, you won't be able to do like the final finisher. But like, if you really like the moveset of one over the other, you could just keep doing that one and not switch.
That's really cool. I mean, I do like that there is still a good amount of depth in the game, even though, like, sometimes the game kind of simplifies it for you sometimes. So that's cool.
I mean, the biggest thing is just I'm really hoping they patch in a higher difficulty. That's really like in terms of gameplay, I think that's the biggest problem. It's just that it is a little too easy, but at the same time, I don't mind it too much because it's fun. It's genuinely fun. I really have a lot of fun playing the game.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so every single publisher's worry was warranted. Made them all push their games away from like the release date of Kingdom Hearts, except Resident Evil 2, of course, because, Resident Evil 2.
Yeah,
cool.
I think they sold like 5 million copies of Kingdom Hearts 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then
crazy.
Everybody is like freaking releasing like their sales numbers and stuff. It's like, I think Resident Evil 2 started it, where they're like, we sold 3 million copies. Oh yeah? Well, Kingdom Hearts 3 sold like 5 million copies. And then Rockstar's like, oh yeah? We shipped 30 million copies. I'm like, how? You didn't even come out in January, Rockstar. What the hell, man? What is this dick waving you guys are doing right here? At least these two games can say like, hey, we released about within a week of each other, right? But Red Dead Redemption 2, all of a sudden, it's like 30 million. I'm like, what? Bro. Are you even part of this?
At least all those overworked employees are getting paid, right, Rockstar?
Yeah, right.
If you're gonna be dick waving about how much, how many copies you sold, let's just hope you're paying your employees that were overworked.
At the very least, I know that Japan is, actually working 40-hour weeks now, not getting overworked like, I don't know, like 10 years ago. So I still find that weird that Japan is like retrograding when it comes to like the number of hours worked. And yet the video game industry here is like working more hours than it's ever done in its entire history. Crazy to think. But that's why Kingdom Hearts 3 and, Resident Evil 2 are awesome games. So I think that about does it for talking about like Kingdom Hearts 3, right? Unless there's any parting words you wanted to talk about when it comes to that game.
No, I think that's pretty much. I said everything I wanted to say about it. I recommend it. It's a good game. That's it.
Pretty cool. All right, guys. Well, we have reached the end of this episode, but before we go, Daniel, do you want to talk about like where people can find you, what you're working on? And I'm pretty excited about that part. And, like anything else that you wanted people to know about you and what you're up to.
Sure. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Shintai Reviews. And if you want to follow me and subscribe to me on YouTube, it is Daniel Santos. But if you can't find me through that, you should also be able to find me through Shintai Reviews. So what I'm currently working on, I've been hard at work on the Styria script, and as of now, the script is roughly 75% done. And what I mean by that is the script is separated into 4 distinct sections.
Okay.
And 3 of those sections are done.
Mm-hmm.
So the only section left is the story.
Mm-hmm.
So like the first section is all about the level design. The second section is all about the combat, and the third section is all about the character progression systems.
Mm-hmm.
So all we got left is the story, and it's a wrap.
Okay. I thought you were going to say, like, it's about 75 minutes long. And then you said percent. I'm like, okay, all right. Well,
no, it's probably going to be that long.
Okay.
Legitimately, it probably will be that long.
Okay. All right. Well, as long as we've clarified it, that's good. Okay. And of course, you can find me on Twitter, twitter.com/mybacklogbattle. I haven't been tweeting a lot because I've been working a lot on the videos and kind of refining them again and stuff. There's a bunch of things that I want to fix, like when it comes to the video quality and a whole bunch of stuff. You guys it's kind of boring to talk about. Just trust me when I say like I'm making the videos better, okay? And you're basically seeing the fruits of our labor, so to speak. And hopefully you guys have been enjoying a lot of the things that we've been posting. And obviously you can talk to me on Twitter about video games. I'll retweet certain news and stuff that might not be Japanese games. Like for example, like Apex Legends, like getting like 1 million users and stuff in the first 8 hours, which is great. Congratulations. And of course, the actual channel, which is the youtube.com/mybacklogbattle channel, where all the videos, including this podcast, is available to watch. So, for example, earlier we talked about like Shadowbringers and stuff. We talked about like the comedy routine that Yoko Taro actually did with Yosuke Saito. We'll probably post a lot of that stuff like as part of this video if you haven't seen already. And, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Impressions. We talk about like crazy things, like very specific things in video games. Like for example, in Yakuza, I talked about like each of the cabaret clubs from like Kiwami and like Fist of the North Star for some reason. A lot of like different topics that we've been talking about. It's really rather fascinating. But ultimately, if you want to talk to us and give us any opinions or how we can better the podcast, or if there's any questions you have about any of the games we talked about, email us at podcast@mybacklogbattle.tv. Once again, that email address is podcast@mybacklogbattle.tv. You're probably seeing it on the lower right corner right now as well. So at any rate, thank you very much for joining us this week. We're so happy that we could see you like this week. Not literally, because obviously we don't have like webcams into your homes, or do we? You usually do this part, but
Wait, what do I usually do?
Wow, he wasn't listening, so that's okay. It's our little secret. Anyways, thank you very much for joining us, and you know why we do this every single week. It's all for the love of video games. Take care.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Take care. Enjoy your week, and we'll see you guys next week. Laters.
Bye. Sorry.
Thanks for watching this video. If you like what you watched, please consider supporting me by liking and sharing the video, posting a comment, and subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to click the bell icon so you won't miss any of my new videos. Also, follow me on Twitter at MyBacklogBattle for the latest updates on upcoming videos, or to just chat about video games. Thanks for stopping by, and let's all have fun playing video games.